Welcome to the Arte European interview. In this edition, we'll be talking to EU Commissioner Michael McGrath. He is the Commissioner for Rule of Law, Democracy, Justice and Consumer Protection. Let's introduce him briefly. Michael McGrath was born in 1976 in Cork in Ireland. After university, he became town councillor in Cork and was later elected to the Irish Parliament. As Minister for Public Expenditure and Reform from 2020 on, he developed Ireland's economic recovery plan after the COVID crisis. He then served as Irish Minister for Finance before officially becoming EU Commissioner for Democracy, Rule of Law, Justice and Consumer Protection in 2024. Michael McGrath, welcome to the Arte European interview here in the European Parliament. When we are talking about the rule of law in the EU, one of the problematic members is certainly Hungary. Would your job be easier if the EU could just throw out Viktor Orban?
Well, we work with all member states and we have a rule of law process, and we've just concluded the rule of law report for 2025, and it looks at every single country within the European Union and 4 enlargement countries also, and we do an evaluation of each country, and then in the case of the EU member states we make recommendations. And again, in the case of Hungary in 2025 we've made a series of recommendations relating to issues like civil society, the independence of the media, ensuring that there is a strong anti-corruption system in place, and so on. And unfortunately, in the case of Hungary, we were not in a position to report much progress at all on the recommendations that we made last year. So in all bar one such recommendation from last year, we had to conclude this year that they had made no progress, and that is deeply regrettable because we have been very helpful to Hungary. We have been available to support and assist them in addressing the rule of law issues in the country, but we need a willing partner to cooperate with, and for us dialogue will always come first. That is our preference, but in the absence of dialogue leading to progress, then we have to be willing to use the tools at our disposal, including infringement proceedings and other tools that we have that can result in EU funds being denied of a country because of rule of law issues.
If we try to briefly sum up the woes with Hungary, it's about the limitation of press freedom, Orban practically controlling most of the media landscape. It is the lawmaking process. Recently there's also been the LGBT laws that came to the fore.
That's right. We've set out in some detail in the country chapter report our evaluation of a whole range of different issues. But yes, we have ongoing contact with Hungary about certain laws. As you know, we have taken a number of infringement proceedings against them. We expect decisions later this year, judgments from the Court of Justice in relation to the so-called child protection law. There was a very strong and clear opinion from the Advocate General in early June in favour of the European Commission's position, but we await the full judgment of the court later on this year. And equally in relation to the National Sovereignty Protection Office, that law we have also challenged, and we expect a hearing and a decision sometime this year also. In relation to the assembly law that led to the banning of the Pride Parade in Budapest, we are continuing to evaluate that. We have written to the Hungarian authorities with a series of questions, particularly focused on the use of facial recognition and personal privacy in GDPR. We are expecting a reply to that shortly, and we will complete our evaluation of that, and then we stand ready, depending on the outcome of that evaluation, to take the next steps in relation to that issue. Another law is a transparency law that they introduced in the Parliament, or that a Member of Parliament introduced, but it may well be adopted by the Hungarian government. And again, we have very serious concerns about that law, and myself and Henna Virkunen, the Executive Vice President, wrote to the Hungarian authorities setting out our views that it would be a breach of EU law and EU principles in the event that it goes ahead as drafted, and we asked them to withdraw it. Now at the moment the bill is deferred, so we just have to await developments. But as you can see, it's an ongoing process. There's a lot of interaction, let's say, between the Commission and Hungary, and it's unfortunate that we are at this pass, because we want to have a good relationship with all member states. We want to work through issues in a collegiate and collaborative manner, but that requires a willing partner on both sides. And
you don't detect the willingness to work on this?
Well, the evidence points to ongoing problems and challenges, and unfortunately in the report that we published, we had to conclude that the position for civil society in Hungary is deteriorating. So, we don't reach our conclusions lightly, because we engage extensively, not just with the government, but with wider civil society, with the judiciary and other stakeholders, and then we form our conclusions based on the facts. And Hungary needs to do much, much better on a whole range of different issues, and that's very clear to anyone who reads the country chapter in the Rule of Law report.
You mentioned the toolbox of forcing Hungary to comply. What are the tools?
We have a strong toolbox, and we have been using it. So about 18 billion euro of funding at the moment that should be available to Hungary is denied of Hungary because of their rule of law breaches. And that's deeply regrettable. I would wish that it were otherwise, because we want the end beneficiaries to enjoy the benefits of EU membership, the benefits of EU funding, but it's because of the actions of the government that funding is not currently available. And our door is always open. I'm happy to engage with the Hungarian government. I, of course, have met with them on a number of occasions with different ministers, and we will continue the dialogue to see if we can find a way forward. But those are some of our tools. We also have the infringement proceedings that we spoke about. We have a certain conditionality attached to the Recovery and Resilience Plan for Hungary as well. They're called super milestones. Many of them are rule of law related. And then, of course, we have the Article 7 procedure that the Parliament here initiated back in 2018, and which has yet to reach a conclusion, but remains at council level. And I participated in a hearing on that at the General Affairs Council back in May.
Just to unpack this a little, because maybe our viewers might not be familiar with the EU technical terms, an infringement procedure is a procedure because of the breach of the rule of law of the EU?
It's where we take Hungary to court, to the Court of Justice of the European Union, because we believe that laws that they have introduced represent a breach of EU laws or EU values, depending on the particular issue. And ultimately, EU law is interpreted and decided by the Court of Justice of the European Union. They sit at the apex as such of the legal order within the EU. And what we have to emphasise to all member states is that the primacy of EU law is non-negotiable. So where the Court of Justice makes a judgment, that judgment must be respected by the Commission and the other institutions, but also by the member states. And we have heard from Hungary that they do not agree with some of the judgments of the Court of Justice, and that places us all in a very difficult position, because the rule of law must be respected throughout the European Union. It is the foundation in many respects of the EU.
So the EU is holding back funds. Is it possible to say how much to this day is being held back?
Well, as of now, it's approximately 18 billion euro that is not available to Hungary in the form of grants or loans, mainly grants actually, not available to them because of rule of law breaches. And in some of those funds, they run out of time, and the funds will not become available in the future. So last year, for example, they lost €1 billion permanently at the end of the year, and further funding will be permanently lost as time progresses if they do not come back into line with the rule of law requirements. And we're not doing this for the sake of it. The rule of law really matters. The rule of law is about ensuring that businesses, ordinary citizens, civil society groups are treated fairly and respectfully in the eyes of the law and by all of the public institutions in Hungary, but in all of the other member states too.
And you mentioned the Article 7 procedure, which is in a way the ultimate sanction the EU can impose towards a member state, where it could ultimately lose its voice in the Council. How far is this procedure?
Well, it's still at the hearing stage, and many hearings have been held at Council level. The Council has not decided to progress to the next step, which would be to conclude on Article 7.1. Article 7.2 then is where you potentially lose as a member state your voting rights. So we're not at that point, and it is the preserve of the Council. They're in possession. The Commission stands ready to continue to support their evaluation, and we are happy to provide our assessment of the state of play on the rule of law in Hungary to help inform the decision that the Council ultimately will make.
It is interesting because Hungary is not the only country that has these problems. Slovakia is mentioned this year in the report. We've had a similar situation with the last Polish government, the PiS government. Now we have a more pro-EU government under Donald Tusk in Poland. It's interesting maybe to watch how rolling back these reforms of the judiciary and the control of the media freedom is. How far is that in Poland?
Progress has been made, and certainly the government has committed to introducing necessary reforms. They haven't been in a position to conclude some of those reforms because of the consent process that is required, and I know the outgoing president of Poland has not agreed to sign certain laws providing for reforms, but we continue to work with the government and we continue to monitor the situation, but they have reiterated on many occasions their commitment to implementing the necessary reforms in relation to the rule of law to bring them back into compliance, and we will continue to support them in their efforts in that regard.
If we zoom out now and look at a more global perspective, looking across the pond towards the US President Donald Trump is putting pressure on the EU. One could say they are even seeking regime change in Europe, because a note of the State Department recently said Europe has devolved into a hotbed of digital censorship, mass migrations, restrictions on religious freedom, and numerous other assaults on democratic self-government. How should the EU react to that?
Well, the EU sets its own laws, and we also have our values of freedom of speech, for example, and freedom of assembly, and democracy, equality, rule of law, freedom, respect for human rights and human dignity. Those are the fundamental foundational values of the European Union, and we will continue to uphold those. And we set our own laws. We do so in an open and democratic way by agreement between the Member States and the European Parliament on the proposal generally of the European Commission. And we have always had a very good, close relationship between the European Union and the United States, and we wish for that to continue. And as you know, we are in ongoing discussions with them in relation to the future of the trading relationship, which is critically important for both the EU and the US. But we stand behind the laws that we have. Of course, we keep everything under review and we monitor the application of our laws, but I am very satisfied that within the EU we do generally have freedom of expression in all of the member states, and we want to ensure that that freedom of expression is protected. It's a fundamental part of EU life.
You mentioned the trade negotiations with the US. In this context, there has been pressure by the Trump government basically asking the EU to roll back some of its digital laws against major US companies. Is that an option?
Our digital laws are not part of the trade negotiations. These are EU laws that apply to all companies operating within the European Union, including European companies and Asian companies and American companies, so that those laws do not target companies from any particular jurisdiction. They are applied in a fair and even-handed manner. They are the laws of Europe, and we expect all companies who are operating within the European Union to respect our laws in the same way that the American administration would expect European companies and American companies and Chinese companies to respect American laws when they are operating in the United States.
The right-wing forces are advancing in Europe. In this parliament, they are stronger than ever before since the last elections. They have active support from oligarchs like Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, who has been actively supporting the German AfD, for example. What can you do against this interference?
Well, first of all, for me, it's about democracy, and the general public are free to vote for whomever they choose. That's their fundamental right that we always have to uphold and protect and make sure that that freedom is preserved in every way. But we also have to ensure that the integrity of our democracy in Europe is protected, and that it is free from undue influence and free from foreign interference, including in the online sphere. So there's no difficulty with anybody expressing their political view online, whether they be an ordinary citizen or the owner of a big tech platform. But also we point out that these platforms have certain obligations because of the enormous power that they wield and the huge influence that they can have. So they have obligations under the Digital Services Act to ensure that they mitigate the risk to issues like electoral integrity, so the conduct of elections, and there are certain actions that are underway by the European Commission on that issue in relation to the Digital Services Act. So it's important for us to be clear with the platforms what their obligations are. There's no problem in providing space for people to express their views, but where the power of the platforms is used through algorithms or recommender systems to amplify certain content with a view to drowning out other content and therefore influencing the outcome of an election, then that is a problem. And that is something that the DSA is equipped to address, and we are taking certain actions against some platforms in that respect.
Speaking about online extremism, radicalization, disinformation, for example, from Russia in the context of the Ukraine war, what tools does the EU have to combat this?
Well, we are already doing a lot. We have a rapid alert system, for example. We are involved in monitoring the information space to try to understand exactly what is happening. So different parts of the Commission and then of course the External Action Service are very active in the area of foreign information manipulation and interference and the question of disinformation. We will consider now as part of the Democracy Shield project that we're currently working on whether the infrastructure we have and the systems we have are adequate and fit for purpose. Do we need new structures, or do we simply need better coordination of all of the good work that is already being done? So again, we have tools, including hard tools such as the Digital Services Act, but we also have softer tools that we continue to use. But it is an issue we need to be very alert to because there are those who will seek to exert real influence on our elections, and generally they do not have the health of our democracy in mind when they seek to do so. They are trying to interfere and bring about, as they would see it, regime change and replace perhaps governments with others that would be more friendly or favourable to their worldview.
With all these challenges, how optimistic are you for the next 4 years for the rule of law and democracy in the European Union?
I think we have work to do, but I think we have solid foundations. On the rule of law, we will now be considering, in the context of the next EU budget, the MFF, what is the appropriate rule of law architecture within that MFF, and that those discussions are live and ongoing at the moment. So we will see whether we need to go beyond the current toolbox that we have in the context of the MFF. And I think the Democracy Shield is an important project. It is fundamentally about empowering the ordinary people of Europe and make sure that they are free to express themselves at the ballot box, in their polling station, in every community around Europe, and that they do so in a manner free from interference. We want people to make up their own mind. It's their decision who they vote for. They will get the politicians that they elect and the policies that they wish to support. That is entirely up to the people of Europe, but we want to protect their right to freedom of expression in democracy, and we will do that in every way we possibly can.
Commissioner McGrath, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Thank you.